Do you want to know how you can turn a 2 million Rand investment into 35,000 Rand per month in rental income with deals that are cash flow positive from day one? My name is Lawrence Bull. I'm the author of Financial Freedom Through Property, and I partner with investors who have some capital and want some exposure into the low income property market, which is very lucrative from a yield perspective. In this quick case study, we're going to be looking at the most recent purchase that I made. We bought this property at 30% below the asking price, and it is generating 25,000 Rand in net cash flows after all expenses. This deal stands out for me because we had to deal with quite a difficult delinquent tenant, which is not uncommon in this market. But once we did evict this tenant and renovated the property, it's now good as gold and ready to be tenanted. Let's go and have a look.
So we're here just doing a drive-by in the south of Johannesburg, which is a really good multi-let market. As we drive by, you'll see different kinds of opportunities for investments. You've got shebeens, you've got little stores, commercial shops, you've got houses, you've got normal apartments, and then you've got blocks of flats, which is really what's attracted me to this market. The thing you got to know is that, and this is what comes with the territory, is you're going to have some tenant delinquent behavior. You're going to have to do some evictions sometimes, and the reality is evictions aren't as hard, as complex, and as expensive as one might think here in this market. But it's something that you have to budget for, and you have to have that risk appetite if you are looking for cash flow positive investment. So the reason why I've been drawn to this market is because you get buildings at scale. So you can buy 6, 10, 12 apartments with one purchase, as opposed to going to Berea and buying 12 individual purchases, which takes a long time. Here's an example of a block of flats. So this is very common. You can very quickly tell the status of the building and the kind of tenants that you're going to get based on how the property is maintained. So this doesn't look too bad. At least there's some sort of level of security, but there's definitely no parking. So you're probably not going to get that great rent. So you see lots of opportunities. Your gross yield for a property in this market is about 20, 25, 30%. Also, there aren't that many buyers who have the capital resources to buy these investments. So your buyer market is quite small, meaning that you could probably come in with a bit of a discount, especially if you have a cash offer. That tends to carry a lot of weight. So here we come into another block. This one's probably 6 times 2 bedrooms. Here's another building. I mean, you can see they're all over the place. This one looks nice because it's got security, it's got parking, it looks really well maintained and clean. So yeah, obviously knowing your area is a hugely important stage. I've got a few buildings in this area, so I know what the kind of tenant demographic is. You probably need to work on a vacancy percentage of at least 8 to 12%. I would definitely recommend that you avoid buildings with high delinquency behavior or hijack buildings, especially if you're a new investor. If you've got the resources, you've got the risk appetite, you've got the big guys to be able to deal with the evictions, then it might be worth it. So here we're coming up to a building that I do own. It's called Jaden Court. So it's here on the right. And in terms of tenant demographic, it's pretty good. We don't have too much delinquent behavior. Maybe about 12% delinquency, but renovations are simple. It's 6 2-bedrooms. So 3 on the top, 3 on the bottom. But there is a massive demand for tenants. There's a massive need for low-cost housing. So finding new tenants is very easy. And now we're going to go and have a look at Great Court, which is the most recent purchase. And we're going to be doing a little case study on how this deal has turned out. And one of the biggest things we had to do was a sizable eviction. So let's get into it. So we're going to have a quick look at this unit. It's recently been renovated. When you're looking at renovating in the low-income market, you're looking for functional, you're looking for low maintenance. You're not looking for fancy finishings. You're not going to put, the most expensive tiles. You're going to look for what's durable and what's functional. So here you can see we've gone for a very clean white repainting of the walls. We ripped out all of the carpets, put in tiles. Completely retiling this property was only about 8,000 Rand. The rest of the renovations, repainting and everything else also cost another 8,000, 9,000 Rand. So basically to get this property to a decent condition cost us less than 20,000. So this is the lounge. The key thing that you want to be looking at when you're viewing the properties is definitely security. Now we are on the 2nd floor, so it's very likely that you need strong burglar bars
on the second and third floor. But when you're on the ground floor, that's a big need and a big requirement. We are in a high risk area. You want to make sure that your tenants are safe and secure. If we walk here through the corridor, we'll get our bathroom here on the right. So this is likely where the geyser is. So it's nice that they've placed the geyser in this container. Usually the geyser will be out on display. That's usually a risk because when a geyser is on display, it needs to be off the roof by a certain length. Otherwise, you can't sectionalize the property. And if you can't sectionalize, you can't refinance. But otherwise, you always just want to check that things are all working, flushing. So when you're doing your inspection and your interview, your review of the property, you can see what's wrong. Here's the first bedroom. Again, you want to be looking at the security features. We're on the second floor, it's not so applicable. When you're looking at a built-in cupboard, I always open it because you tend to see a lot of damp issues on the inside of a cupboard. Let's go to the second bedroom. Another thing to consider and look at is your electricals. So you can see that that's a relatively old electrical plug. Part of every sale is you get a certificate of compliance, which is essentially a handyman that comes in, checks that the plumbing and the electricals are all fine and satisfied. So, as a buyer, the seller has to make sure that that's in place. So you don't have to worry too much about electricals. It needs to be, as part of the OTP, settled by the seller, but it's still good for you to see what the finishings are and where some touch-ups are needed. So I'm standing here with my good friend, CZ. We're partners on the property app. He's also a property investor. He's got a development going in Durban with 10 units, so he's quite experienced. This is his first time here in the South with me. So Msizi, what's been your experience so far of this market and why are you interested in this market?
Yeah, so this market does look a little bit dodgy, but it's not very far off from all of the high-end areas. What I like about it though is the positive cash flow. I think that's what sold me, and I also want to invest with Lawrence in one of the partnerships that we're doing.
What is, for those who don't know, positive cash flow? What does that mean?
It basically means your expenses are less than your income, so your income is better than your expenses.
And in order to know what kind of area might make positive cash flow sense, you need a gross yield calculation.
Yes.
What is a good gross yield estimate to say this area will probably have some positive cash flow deals?
It's about 15%, give or take.
Yeah, obviously it depends on the interest rate. Higher interest rate means higher gross yield. And when you're considering a deal, let's say I was to partner with you and I brought you a deal, what would be your minimum ROI for this kind of area?
I think around about 12%. 12% would be good. People don't see these kind of opportunities. We see them and we want to obviously capitalize on them in a positive way.
Let's go to the final bedroom of this 3-bed. And these kind of, units in Turffontein, Kenilworth, you could probably fetch about 5,500, excluding recoveries. This is quite a small room, probably a kid's room or maybe a study. But, we're going to market it as a 3-bedroom. Finally, let's end on the kitchen. I tend to spend the most time in the bathrooms and the kitchens when I'm looking at new units because that's where the majority of your work's going to be. When you're looking in your bedrooms and your lounge, yes, you're going to have to repaint, retile. That's pretty much going to be standard, but that's not a huge cost. When you're looking in your kitchens, again, what we're looking for is durable and functional. So I like steel containers for where your water is, because if you've got wood here, within 3 to 4 years, it's going to be molded and need to be replaced. If you can put a concrete slab, it's not pretty, but again, durable, functional, it's going to require very little maintenance. Here we can see everything is steel, which is great. That means that it's going to be low maintenance. The other thing that you usually look at in the kitchen is the DB board, the electrical board. I mean, you can see that this thing is quite old. So that's a potential renovation cost that you have to bring into your numbers. Maybe not on transfer, but within 5 years, you're probably going to have to do some electrical work, which can be expensive. Here you can see a prepaid meter. That's a question I always ask to agents. Is there a prepaid meter? This is important because then your tenant has to pay electricity costs before they get electricity, instead of using and then you try and recover from them at the end of the month, which you don't know that they're going to pay. The story behind this unit is actually quite interesting. It was basically a hijacked unit and probably the worst condition I've ever seen a property, but it's cost less than 20,000 Rand to fix. So as much as maintenance is something you do have to consider when you're in the low income market and you're going to have tenants that disrupt and destroy your property, to fix it and bring it back to tenantable position is actually quite cheap. So that is a brief summary of how I would inspect a unit, either when buying a new property or like this, when we've renovated one. As the landlord, I want to come in and make sure that the renovation has been done to standard. If you'd like your money to work harder for you and you'd like to participate in the lucrative low-income property market, please contact me and I will share with you my partnership prospectus.